Hey guys, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be sculpting a blocked out base mesh, focusing on joining the separate objects, applying a voxel remesh to give the mesh a higher and more uniform topology, and then adding in some subtle detail using the sculpting tools. I'm going to be starting from a blocked out base mesh like this. I have a video on how I put this particular base mesh together, but feel free to follow along with whatever character you're working on now. Okay, let's jump in. So in my case, I have a blocked out base mesh, which has a bunch of different roughly sculpted shapes, which are all separate, as you can see here. So to make sculpting easier, I'm going to join all of these separate objects. If you have any of the objects with a mirror modifier on them, make sure to apply it before joining. You can go over to the right side modifier panel and click on the little drop-down menu in Blender version 2.9 to apply them. I would suggest saving a separate backup file before applying any modifiers, as this is not really easily reversible. Okay, so to join the objects, it's actually quite easy. Just shift select all of the objects you want to join together. I'm going to leave out the eyes until the end and just focus on the head for now. And then press Ctrl J. Now you can see all of the objects are made into one selectable object. Nice and easy. We now have some pretty distinct crease lines between each of the objects though. To fix this, I'm going to make use of the Voxel remesh function. Control Tab to access the Mode Pie menu, and I'm going to select the Sculpt mode. You can see here I get a weird warning about non-uniform scale. Sometimes I find that this does in fact result in some weird sculpting behavior, so to fix this, just tab into Object Mode, then over to the Object Properties tab. You'll see that the scale in the X direction here does not match the Y and Z. Press Ctrl A and then select all transforms. You'll notice now the scale factor on all the axes matches, which makes Blender a little bit happier. Okay, so Control Tab back into Sculpt mode. You'll notice the mesh is a bunch of different colors now. This means that they are at different resolutions or voxel sizes. So to fix this, you can go up to the Voxel Remesh menu, and with the eyedropper tool, I'm just going to click on the object to see what the current voxel resolution is at for some of the different colored pieces here. So we have 0.08 on the jaw, 0.1 on the nose. So I'm going to round down on the lowest resolution I see to 0.08 and then press the remesh button. Now all the pieces are the same color, denoting they have been retopologized at a voxel resolution of 0.08. You can see we now have some artifacts that have popped up along the crease lines. To fix these, just select the smooth brush here, or what I find to be much faster and easier, there is a special shortcut to access the smooth brush while you have any brush selected, and that is by holding the shift button. So you can see here I have the Sculpt Draw brush selected, but by holding the shift button, it turns it into the smooth brush. This is very, very handy. I use this a lot when sculpting. So now it's just a matter of going over the crease lines with the smooth brush to smooth everything out. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing as I did on the head to the body. Shift selecting all of the objects that I want to join. Don't forget, if anything has a mirror modifier on it, you need to apply it first before performing the join operation. You can apply all the modifiers of all selected objects quickly by clicking on this button here, Apply All. You may not have this button, so to get it, you need to activate a built-in Blender add-on. So up to the Edit Preferences menu, click on Add-ons, type Modifier in the search, tick this button, and then click Save. Okay, so with everything selected, I can just click Apply All, and it will apply all of the modifiers of all of the selected objects. Now you can just press Ctrl J to make it all one object. Now, similar to the head, let's voxel remesh the body to make it all one resolution and make it so that we can smoothly sculpt everything as one piece. You can go up to the remesh menu as we did before, or if you are in Blender version 2.9, you can press Shift R to set the voxel size like this. The bigger the number, the lower the resolution. The lower the number, the higher the resolution. The voxel size is currently at the 0.08 we set before. But if you found the poly count in the bottom right corner was getting a little bit too high, let's say, you could increase it to take it down. Instead of going up to the remesh menu and clicking the remesh button, you can also press Ctrl R to perform the remesh as well. So it looks pretty good, but watch out. Sometimes with the voxel remesh, objects that are close together can fuse together like this. This happens either when the voxel resolution is too low or the objects are too close together. To fix this, I'm just going to increase the voxel resolution by lowering the voxel size number. Now you can see the artifacts fusing is gone. Everything else looks good for now, so now it's just a matter of smoothing out the creases like we did before. Now for the hands, same thing as before, select all of the objects, click Apply All in the modifier panel, then Ctrl J to join them. Then Shift R to set the voxel size. Similar to what happened with the legs, watch out for fusing in between the fingers here, as you can see. You may need to experiment with the voxel size to strike the right balance between resolution and poly count. Once you do, it's just more smoothing. Pressing Alt-B will allow you to set the clipping region in the viewport, which makes orbiting around objects a little bit easier if things are getting in the way. To clear it and get back to the normal view, just press Alt-B again. Okay, so now I'm going to do a first pass, if you will, of roughing in some details on the face. / on the keyboard to go to local view on the body. Control Tab into sculpt mode. With the sculpt draw tool selected, I'm going to hold Control to invert and dig out the sockets for the eyes. Then some small adjustments to the placement of the eyes. Right now, I'm not going to commit to anything looks-wise. I'm just starting to get some rough details in. Onto the nose, more inverted sculpt draw brush for the nostrils. Here I press Ctrl R again to remesh the object and clean up the stretched geometry inside the nostril. Then some crease brush around the outside of the nostril to accentuate it a little bit more. Then inverted sculpt draw brush for the philtrum. Now onto the mouth. I'm going to press M for the mask tool here. I'm going to turn the strength up to 1. Then I'm going to paint an M shape like this for an exaggerated stylized top lip. Control I to invert the mask. Now the grab or elastic deform brush, up to you. I'm going to pull it out and angle it down like this. Then Alt-M to clear the mask. Then I'm going to press Ctrl-R to remesh again, just to clean up the topology a little bit. Now onto the bottom lip, same thing, M for the mask tool, Ctrl-I to invert, then pull it out like this. Now I'm going to pull the corners of the mouth back with the grab or deform brush. Crease brush for in between the lips, and then inverted sculpt draw brush to accentuate the corners. Then some inverted clay strips brush on the cheeks to make the face a little bit more stylized and angular. then just a bunch of small adjustments to try and clean it up a bit. I'm definitely not going to be Valve's next lead character artist, as you can see. It often takes me quite a few tries to get anything to even look mediocre, and I find that what helps the most is that I'll just rough in details like this in a first pass, then I'll move on before I get discouraged and lost in trying to get things to look perfect. So, having said that, let's move on to the neck. I'm going to start by roughing in the bony landmark, as they call it, for the collarbone, like this. From the center of the chest, slight bend to the shoulder, then towards the back. Then, from the end of the collarbone, I'm going to go straight up to the back of the ear to create the sternocleidomastoid muscle. Going to create a well just above the collarbone, and then a bump for the throat. Then onto the trapezius muscle. Then flattening out the area between the collarbone and the trapezius, and then smoothing things out. Now just some more rough sculpting on the body. When it comes to sculpting the body, I do recommend using what is called a human écorche reference image. I'll put a link in the description to a couple of good resources I like to use. They are basically images of the musculature of the body, which I find really helpful in getting a good shape and form. I intend for this character to be predominantly clothed and covered with some armor, so I'm not going to go too crazy here on the anatomy. But I do think it's important to take 20 minutes and lay down some rough musculature, as it helps in making sure the character's overall shape is sound and makes sense somewhat, even if some parts are exaggerated or stylized. Here I'm adding in a rib cage and some abs, which I'll smooth over for the most part. Now onto the back. Here I'm just kind of following what I see on the human écorche images, the trapezius, the back of the deltoids, the lats, some of the other smaller muscles, and then down to the glutes. Now a quick smooth, and then a crease brush down the middle for the spine and buttocks. Then to frame the butt a little bit better, I'm going to use the crease brush underneath, like this. Then some inverted clay strips brush to highlight the shoulder blades and lats a little bit more. And then some more crease brush on the top of the butt to further highlight the glutes. And then just some small adjustments for the rest of the body. Okay, so now onto the hands. Crease brush at the base of the fingers and then on each of the bends. Then some clay strips brush to start forming the knuckles. Okay, now I want the character to have longer nails, so I'm going to select the snake hook brush here and pull out like this to start forming the general shape. Okay, so that kind of wraps up the first rough pass of sculpting. Now I'm going to do another second pass where I start tightening things up, adding in some detail, stylizing things a little bit more, and getting it closer to the final look I want. Here I don't like the eyebrows I did earlier, so I just smooth them completely down, and then with the clay strips brush, build them back up again a little bit more subtly. The eyes are a little on the large side for me, so I'm going to scale them down and move them in a little bit. Obviously, the location, scale, and rotation of the eyes is pretty crucial to how the character looks, which is why I didn't join them earlier. I like to move them around and try out different looks. From a very general standpoint, you want the nose to be the farthest point out, followed next by the top lip, followed by the bottom lip, and then followed by the chin. Kind of like a staircase. So I'm just going to pull things around to achieve that. Pulling in the chin a bit to try and make the face a little bit more feminine and softer. Then also pulling in the tip of the nose and nostrils as well. It's a little bulbous around the nose and mouth, so just shaving it down a little bit. Now to start stylizing it a bit more, I like to use the scrape brush here, starting on the underside of the nose and in and around the nose bridge and eye sockets to give a more angular feel. I also really like to use the inverted crease brush to accentuate lines like this on the lips. Really helps accentuate and highlight the plainer, angular, stylized look as well. Now just making a bunch of small adjustments until I realize that this is as good as it's going to get. To finalize, I'm going to apply the mirror modifier on the eyelids. Control J to join them to the rest of the body. Then Voxel Remesh and the smooth brush. The crease brush to accentuate the eyelids a bit more. Here you can see I didn't move the eyelids back far enough, so I have a sort of weird connection to the head. I try and remedy it with some clay strips brush and then some more adjustments with the grab brush to make the arc of the eyelids a little less uniform. Okay, that's good enough for now. Now onto the body. I'm not going to do too much here, just some minor pushes and pulls. I intend to have the character mostly clothed and armored, as I mentioned before, so not much of this will be seen, I don't think. The hands are a little on the large side. I have a bad habit of making them too big all the time, so pushing them in a bit here to make them smaller. Now making a lot of small adjustments on the hands, as you can see. Digging out a bit between the thumb and index finger to exaggerate the fold there. Going over the creases on the fingers and the palm. Pulling the thumb a bit to make it a tad bigger. More crease brush around the side of the knuckles to highlight them a bit better. Now some more clay strips brush for the knuckles. And then inverting the clay strips brush to flatten out the palm where it meets up with the wrist, as it's looking a little bit too bulbous here. And now on the wrist, adding in a subtle nod to the bones and tendons on the sides. I'm not going for ultra realistic here, but I always like to add this stuff in and try to get better at sculpting and detailing. And finally, just to finish off the hand, I'm going to select the mask tool by pressing M on the keyboard and painting in the shape of a fingernail. Then pressing Ctrl I to invert it. Up to the clay strips brush and holding Ctrl to invert it, I'm going to make the bed of the fingernail, just kind of flatten it out a bit. Then I'm going to go back in with the normal clay strips brush and add in some roundness to each nail because it's looking a little bit too flat for me. So there you have it, one way to sculpt a base mesh. In the next video I'm going to do some sculpting of some stylized hair and also add in some small things like eyelashes and eyebrows. Give me a shout on social media and show me what you're working on. I love seeing your creations and projects. I have a little Facebook group going now too, where you can kind of share things a little bit easier if you wanted. Anyway, thanks for watching guys. I hope it helped, and see you in the next one.